Hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live here in Victoria, British Columbia aboard this classic wooden motor cruiser with my pup Geordie. Well, this week we're just going to wrap up the fuel line project on my friend's boat MV Zephyrus here, and to be honest there were at least 2 episodes worth of footage, but I have a feeling it was a good idea to just wind it down to 1 episode, so we'll be done with it today. Let's carry on. Let's get started here in the aft end, putting the valves on and finishing that up before we can move forward into the engine bay. And just to remind you, there is still the remainder of the original bulkhead piece that'll go in there. So basically I'm going to veneer this with mahogany ply, which will then be covered by a mahogany step someday. But in the meantime, the actual valves will mount to the mahogany veneer that I'm going to put on here now, and they'll be about there. All right then, so I have a lovely long spool of certified fuel hose. I don't know if you can read on here. The key thing to read off here is that you need US Coast Guard USCG approved type A1, and I don't know if you can read that on there. This fuel line is the such. Okay, enough of the hoses. Now we can talk about hose clamps. Now, on the 3/8 and smaller, you can use these simpler. They're not a worm gear type clamp. They're just a straight clamp. Also, U.S. Coast Guard, not ABYC approved. The only trick is you have to use 2 for fuel lines, and ideally you stagger them so that they're in opposite directions. All right, so let's put this one on. All right, well, I'm going to put a clip against the bottom of the deck there. It's got to go down between the tanks. I'm going to say to about there. So I'm going to cut that one right there. And you can see I'm cutting this very easily with a PEX pipe cutter. I don't know if this is universally used for rubber hose, but gosh, does it ever work great. And this one will come down in that same gap and come back up to roughly the same place. That makes a pretty bulletproof connection. Okay, with these lines all set up, now I got to start to figure out how I'm going to run the fuel hoses forward. Now, in the past, you saw me remove the copper. Well, the copper had been in this notch cut in the top of all the floors. And I hate to see notches cut because they take out a lot more strength than drilling holes. And the other thing about putting the lines right here is that they completely obliterated the only access to the bilge. It made it quite difficult to clean and work down there. So I am going to reroute these through holes drilled in all the floors. Fair amount of work, but I think it makes a better install when it's all said and done. So now the only problem with drilling holes here is that you need a right angle drill and a very short bit. Well, cue the right angled bit. So I've been able to borrow a right angle drill, and I would have loved to use an auger bit, but I've had to settle on a spade because I can cut a spade bit down to make it short enough to do this work. You can't really cut an auger down, and that wouldn't have worked at all. Okay, so let's see how short I've got to make this. Okay, so if I chuck it up as normal, I can see that not going to be able to drill these holes like this. So I have to be able to get the drill head and the point back in here, so I have to remove that much off this end of the spade bit. Okay, it's a pretty straightforward. Cut it off where I marked it, but then I wanted to put the flats back on, the hex flats, so that the chuck could hold it really well. And then I realized it's going to be really hard to guess what 6 flats look like, although you only really need 3. Then I realized I'll just put the flats on before I cut it off. I can follow these flats. Yeah. Alright then, so I've marked along all the floors where I'm going to make the mark, and I've marked a cut down here on the side where I'm going to make the drill. So at this point, it's pretty straightforward. And because spades aren't your most elegant bit, I'm going to, as soon as the point comes through, drill through from the opposite side to make a slightly neater hole. Alright, I don't think you need to see any more of this. It's going to go on forever. Now I cleaned out the holes First with a piece of scrap hose to limit the amount of junk that would be caught up in the actual hoses. And I've opted not to tape over these hoses as I pull them through because the tape would not have stayed on. So I'm not worried about dust being on the inside or chips. I'm going to take my compressed air and blow the hoses out after I pull them all through. All set. Let's see about this. Okay, excellent. All right, carrying on in the tiny cockpit shop, I have cut out a little notch in a piece of mahogany that will, mahogany plywood that is, that'll end up beautifying this bulkhead. Let's go down and make sure we can get clearance for it. Should slide in here. I would say that is just fine. And because this is going to get tung oil and then varnish, I'm going to put a preliminary edge coat of tung oil on this just to make sure it's sealed up nicely. And there we go. There we go, and we'll attach it with my favorite little toy. Now, I don't know how I'm going to attach this in the end, but this will certainly do for now, and it'll keep it in place while I figure out what we're doing next. It's nice to be able to close this up now. Excellent, have the full breadth of the sole to work with. Okay, so this is going to get pretty esoteric. As measured before, this is basically the second step. That would be the top of the second tread that would be underneath. So if the valve is to fit underneath that step, it has to be underneath the bottom of this tape. Also keeping in mind, when the valve is in the position with the handle upwards, it still has to fit underneath there. So I'm going to say the center line of the holes has to be about there. There we go. So I have chunked off and tidied up with a few chamfers a support block that the two valves will sit on, and let's see how that's going to work. The valves sit almost perfectly on a 1-inch stock. It's ever so slightly proud here at the back, so I'll have to make the slightest dimple in the bulkhead after, and it kind of rocks back and forth because of the small curvature in here. So all I really need to do is put a slight little indent in here where that can sit, and then these can be nicely mounted to the bulkhead here. A little bit of whittling, a little bit of sanding, and the valve fits there perfectly now. Nice. So right about there, plenty of room for the handle. Now these screws are long enough to go right through the veneer ply into the solid 3/4 ply behind. All right then, so now we just can slap on some oil on the whole surface here and let that soak in a bit before we get too far along. Oh, I love getting the oil on. Okay, let's let that soak in a little bit and then we'll rub it off. So as I get ready to mount all this, I'm just going to blow out the hoses that went aft, forward actually, just to make sure there's no assorted junk in there. So this one, which is going to be the return valve. Very nice. All right, I've been waiting a while to see that look like that. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, now just put the hoses on. And so basically it's just a matter of getting it relatively close, getting it sort of tidy looking, and cutting it with my handy dandy hose cutter. So we'll put 2 hose clamps on, one left, one right. And on goes the hose. Beauty. I think before I commit to tightening them all down, I'll lay them all out just to make sure I like the way they all feel. This is one of these things that you can get caught up in the thinking and then just screw it up for no reason at the end. Well, that is just fabulous. I love it. Okay, folks, this is the 7 o'clock acknowledgement for hospital workers. And every night, all the boats in the marina honk their horns or clang their pots. I just love it. Okay then, so as for this miserable mess, yes, I'm replacing one gnarly little veneer with another gnarly little veneer. But it'll look okay until I can decide what I'm actually going to do here, which will be the steps. Now that I decided not to put the valves in this step, but put them in the actual engine bay, that vastly simplifies this. All right, let's just tack this on and get some oil on here. Looks good enough to me. Okay, it's time to figure out what I'm going to do about rearranging everything here in the engine bay. And one of the first things I know I'm going to do is I'm going to relocate the Racor filters up to this location, because this is premium service location for the Racors, because this section of the wheelhouse sole comes up very easily and I want to be able to get to that quickly. The water pump and inline filter for that, they can go somewhere else. It's not so crucial here. It's kind of a drag to move these, but I knew this was temporary, thus the morettes and the wrong type of wire. This was really just a sort of a proof of concept to get everything working, because all the plumbing for the pressure side is going to change. So am I going to do that all in this project? I don't know. So we can dive in here and start taking this apart. It's going to be a little pressure on this. Out comes this. Okay, and that. All right then, so I'm going to take a little more of this lovely plastic and make a couple of shims and support for the valve. You'll see what I'm up to in a second. All right, so let's vacuum this up quick before it gets blown around. Okay, let's see if we can get this thing mounted. So the aluminum plate that it was already mounted to is going to go right here. Which is an excellent location for servicing it. I'm very, very pleased with that. The only problem is we have some carriage bolt heads sticking through this, and this piece is slightly lower than that. So I've made a couple of shims. You saw me rip them out of more of the plastic, and so corresponding between the two, this will sit nice and flat. So just to get started, I'm just going to hang it on a single screw, and rather than try to juggle all this all at the same time. Okay, so what I'm going to do then, here's the last piece of plastic that I made up, which I'm using to hold the valve. The valve will sit right here, basically right lined up with the two lower holes, and they've been pre-drilled to match. And I'm going to drill these holes out a bit because I'm putting very long screws in here. And place the top shim in. It should just slide in nicely. Very nice. And there we go. All right, well that is robust if anything ever was. Really liking this setup. And on with the new barb fittings. Easy peasy. Again, you can't see any of this, so I won't make you watch. And that's done. Okay, nothing now but to connect up the hoses. Now, in a further effort to expedite this project, so we can wrap up this episode today, I am not going to install the fuel polishing system, in other words, the electric pump and the last valve that would have recirculated it in full transparency, because I couldn't get an adequate pump in time. But so that does vastly simplify this part of it. So these are the two hoses that are, they're actually a loop right now, that are running aft to the tank, which we saw us install last week. So basically the feed one, which I just had to figure out which is which, comes up to the common position on the selector valve, and then two lines to the two inputs of the two filters, and then the common line off to the engine. Then we can start it. Yeah. Okay then, so here's the big moment. It's can still do's with a little bit of tidying up. I've temporarily repositioned the pressure water pump, and yes, there's still morettes on there, so I'll take another round of heat for those, but the water pressure system is still not done. Anyway, I'm very, very pleased with this. Let's see if it'll start. Love these Perkins. Many of you will remember that I have two wonderfully charming and clever daughters, the youngest of which, Caitlin, who has been on the show many, many times, who is both a scientist and a foodie, has combined those two into her own new YouTube channel. Well, it's absolutely wonderful. Her first episode is about the science of sourdough bread, and in fact her subsequent episodes will be explaining the science of food, and I think it's really, really interesting, and she's done a great job of it. I've sent a link down below, and if I remember how to do it, there'll be a little link up here in the corner. Please consider checking it out. Okay there, boys, wish me luck. Just heading downtown in the dinghy for the live stream that we did last Sunday. So I have a sketchy tripod bungeed to the thwart, of which I'm going to elastic band my iPhone 10 to, hoping it doesn't fling off into the sea. I have my iPad with me that I'm going to use to be able to read the comments, hopefully. I've charged up the dinghy battery, but it's a bit of a long haul, so I'm going to row downtown just to preserve battery so you guys get a proper tour. Let's head off. Okay, well, this is relatively attached. I'm feeling pretty good about that. This is pretty good. Feeling good about that. Of course, if anything lets go, it'll just go flying into the ocean. Let's head downtown. All right, then, I don't know how this is going to go. I am in what I call the pool of the harbor. The legislature is right there. The Empress Hotel, you can see right up there. And I'm trying to get all the tech to work. Basically, I'm doing this live stream off data on my phone. And because I can't obviously read any comments on there, I have logged in through a Wi-Fi hotspot on my iPad to be able to read the comments that are gonna... Anyway, we'll see if this works at all. Yikes. Well, hello and welcome to the beer of the week. I have a lot to get through, so I'll try to move relatively quickly on this. Let's start with the beer. We're going to my second favorite brewery, Twa Dogs, here in Victoria, British Columbia, and we're going to try their Through the Clouds Hazy IPA. Now, Twa Dogs is a very interesting brewery because not only are they a brewery, they're also a distillery. And these two fine specimens right here, we're going to go to in more detail in some upcoming episodes, because we may have a Scotch of the Week coming up, because in fact both of those are World Award winners. Very, very interesting. Okay, we're going to try and experiment here today. You've seen all my crummy pours, right? Well, in my left hand is a glass that I washed on my boat using dish soap. On the glass in my right hand, look how crystal clean it is, was washed on this boat, which is MV Zephyrus, in her dishwasher. And I believe it's possible. Let's have a look here. Okay, so let's pour half of the beer into my glass. Instituting a proper down the side 45 degree or 60 degree or whatever is going on here. Now, this doesn't appear to be a very carbonated beer, so it may not be a very interesting test. But that poured relatively nicely. So let's see if I can do the same, being as careful with this other glass. Yeah, well, this was a useless test because this just isn't a very carbonated beer, and or it has absolutely no effect whether it was washed in the dishwasher or not with that weather. So anyway, the nice thing about it is I now have two glasses of beer to enjoy with you. Mind you, they are tall and skinny. So cheers. I haven't had this before. Oh my gosh, but I'll be having it again. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Just a splendid hazy. I'm so crazy about these hazy IPAs. Very good. All the better to cheers. 4 new patrons came on this week. Thank you all so much. Matthew Drew, Brian Mebben, James Hobbs, and Susan Woodrum. Cheers to you all, and thank you so much for coming aboard. Also, more goodies came in the mail. A bunch more circuit breakers, which are so valuable, and I'm so grateful. And they came from Mr. Theodore Cummings. Thank you so much, Theodore. Grateful for those. And more electrical goodies. A nice big fuse block, another breaker, and the last 2 of the amber panel LEDs. And they came
from George Michael Oswald. Thank you so much, George. That's really, really fantastic. I can't wait to get to the electrical, and we're getting closer and closer to being able to do that. So, cheers to you both. Oh, almost forgot. Can you guess? Word of the week will be sunshine, and that's a clue. Cheers.